Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Gripe. I'm Danielle Kessner, and this is the show for short, sweet movie reviews of new movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. I know it's been a while, but that's because I've been so busy with other things I haven't been able to go to the theater. What's up with that? So, I figured, why not, go to the movies after work, why not? Good times. So, the movie I saw this week was The Martian. And this is one I've actually been kind of excited about because I listen to the Rooster Teeth podcast and they talk about the book all the time. And I'm a Ridley Scott fan. I'm a fan of sci fi movies. So it's one of those, it's just like everything seemed to be right. And the way that they talk about the book in on the podcast, it sounds like it's something that would certainly interest me. So I figured, why read the book when I could see the movie? So here we are, The Martian, starring Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Jeff Daniels, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and who else is there? Sebastian Stan, Kate Mara. So yeah, there's a pretty substantial cast. Sean Bean, and spoiler alert, he doesn't die, but Sean Bean. Um, so yeah, pretty solid cast. If you haven't seen anything about it or haven't seen the movie yet, let me give you kind of the premise of it. So the movie basically starts out there's a team of astronauts on Mars. They're just doing surveys, just collecting data and all that stuff. And there's pretty much there's a storm coming that they basically have to make the decision to either stay or leave, so that they don't damage the ship or die in the storm, basically. So they decide to leave, and in the process of leaving, Matt Damon's character gets hit by flying debris, and they can't find him. So basically, they presume he's dead, and they leave. Well, he isn't dead, and now he's basically stuck on Mars with limited food, limited water, um, and basically it's no way to communicate with NASA or with his crew. So it's like, now what happens? What basically he comes to the conclusion he's going to die, and ultimately he has to use his smarts, he has to use his science, his knowledge of science, because he's a botanist. He has to use all these things that he has with him just there to be able to create a way for him to survive. And he does just that by using his botany skills to plant potatoes, because he has they have potatoes, and he basically uses those, plus his own human waste to basically create a garden, farm, basically, that he does creates inside this environment that he's living in. So it's like, okay, he actually, there's a chance that he can sustain himself, and he finds out how to make water. Again, using what he has there, using his knowledge of science and chemistry and all that, basically to create water. Which, I mean, it seems like something like, how the hell can you do that? But it's like, all you need is hydrogen and oxygen, you can make water. And so he's doing all this stuff, and he basically finds a way to survive. And once he gets in contact with NASA again, and they've realized, oh, he actually is alive, then it's like, okay, now how do we get him off the planet? How do we save him so that he doesn't just starve to death? And this is one of those things that when you're watching this as a movie, you're like, well, how many millions upon millions, if not billions of dollars, would they have to spend to save one guy on Mars who probably should not have been there in the first place? I mean, what were they doing on Mars? There's really no explanation for the motive or anything like that. But basically, he's on Mars and he gets stranded there, and so they spend millions of dollars to save him. But that's no big deal. Um, but essentially, then it becomes this rescue mission of like, okay, how does he survive long enough for them to get help, for them to actually get somebody there to help him off the planet, get him off the planet. There's a ship there that he can use to get off the planet, but the problem is that it won't take him back to Earth. It's something that just has to get him to something else. And so the crew that was going home basically hangs a U-turn, and they have this, they have to they basically have to use mathematics and physics and all that to meet at an exact point so that he can get off the planet safely, and they can grab him while not losing the momentum to get home. So it's all about, math and physics and science and all that, just that awesome nerd stuff that, we don't get in science fiction as much as we should. So really fantastic on that front. So that's what the movie is about. It's this guy stranded on Mars that they spend millions of dollars to save. It sounds like that's my key gripe, but it's actually not. I have a different key gripe. Um, Overall, it's a very good movie. I'm not complaining at all. I mean, Ridley Scott has kind of, he's one of those directors that's kind of hit or miss, and when he hits, it's fantastic, like Alien, like Gladiator, Blade Runner. Um, I could even go so far as to say Kingdom of Heaven because I thought that was a really good movie. Story wise, maybe not so much, but I thought it was a solid movie. But he also has had some misses that are, kind of questionable. Prometheus has its moments, but it's certainly not as good as it could be. Um, American Gangster, another really good movie, but just not quite there, and certainly whitewashing a lot of stuff. But here, I think he kind of redeems himself for the simple fact that I don't think he was allowed to do much. I think he was reined in a bit so that it wasn't, Ridley being just like going completely bonkers with, his style and flair and all that. I think they kind of reined him in and, it stuck to the story, Drew Goddard did the script based on Andy Weir's book. Um, and it felt like it was a pretty good he did a pretty good job with that. Obviously, having not read the book, I can't say how accurate it is to the story, but it seemed like just the way things kind of played out, it seemed like that it would make sense that it was fairly close, just truncated, obviously. The cast, pretty good job. Matt Damon didn't quite have like Castaway level craziness going on. He didn't fall in love with the volleyball, but he did kind of, he had a lot of just like cute little quips and things here and there. But it just wasn't, you know I didn't necessarily get a huge amount of like the the sorrow. Like if you imagine being stranded on a distant planet, there would probably be a lot more like sorrow and just realization of death, and I didn't get a whole lot of that from Matt Damon, because he was kind of playing Matt Damon, and which is not always a bad thing, but in this case I thought it maybe could have served him a little bit better. um, Standouts though, I mean, Chiwetel Ejiofor, he did a pretty solid job in his role. Um, Sean Bean, I kind of liked him in this one because he was a little bit more subdued than you normally see from him. He wasn't a villain in any way. Um, so I mean, and Jessica Chastain did pretty well as kind of this commander, but again, I didn't see like a lot of really like the concern was there, but it was really hard to tell if it was just kind of like forced, and that was a little bit of what I mean. The acting, I mean, I guess is part of why I felt so subdued. Is nobody was really overacting, which I guess you could say is a good thing, but sometimes a little melodrama goes a long way. I like it at least. Um, but most of the other elements were pretty good. The cinematography, the score, um, the special effects. There were a few misses here and there, but overall, like technically, it looked really good. The sets that or the landscapes that they were filming at in Jordan, I guess, were just fantastic. But um, getting low on time here, so I'm gonna just go right into my key gripe because it's one that I think actually hurt the movie a bit. Not just at the end, but throughout. The end just kind of highlighted it. At the end, after without spoiling it, but after things end, or after they get to the planet and there's that whole climactic scene, everything just kind of then moves on. And there's a few parts in this movie where that happens, where it's like, okay, you start here, we know there's a problem, we know that there's an issue, and then jump ahead. That problem is no longer there, or it's just like it's far enough in the future that it's out of sight, out of mind. Everybody's forgotten it, and they're just moving on. The reason okay, I'm gonna have to spoil it here. The reason that it annoyed me to no end was because they basically destroyed the ship, the life support on the ship. They just had the bridge that they could stay in on the way home, which is like a almost 8 or 9 month trip back home. That was just kind of glossed over. It's like, okay, you're going to destroy half your ship that you can't stay in, and you're just going to go, for almost a year back home in this tiny little bunker with no kitchen, just the five or six people in this little bridge going that way. And it's just one of those things that they kind of glossed over. And I thought that actually would have been more entertaining to see, is what happens on the way home, as opposed to, this just like, oh, we got him, we're good, everybody, we're good, okay, see you on the other side. It just it and and the movie was very fast paced. Don't get me wrong; it was a really fast paced movie, but I think that might have hurt it in a couple of areas, and this is one that I think really hurt it, because then it's just like, okay, you're, you know, the believability thing is, I can usually let those things go, but it just seemed like they really did gloss over a lot of things, and it's like, I think some of the dramatic weight could have been put into the movie in those moments, in those like times where things were desperate, when they were, you know, when things were going wrong, or when there was just this like, you know, things were not ideal. Everything, it didn't feel. I guess my point is that it didn't feel like there was enough peril for somebody stranded on Mars. There was not enough peril, so that hurts the movie a lot when the whole movie is a survivor movie and there's not enough peril. I don't know. That's my key gripe. But overall, I'd say it's a mostly positive movie. I'd give it probably 7.5 out of 10. Um, I'll probably end up seeing it again, not in theaters, but I will have to watch it again at some point, probably to pick up on some of the things I missed. But um, very good movie. I would recommend it. 7.5 out of 10. That's pretty good, I think. That's pretty good. So, and that's all for today's episode. So thanks a lot for watching Key Gripe. I'll see you guys next time.